Hi everyone, it's Gilda. We're going to do a really fun project today. I did this a few nights ago and really like the way it came out. It's, here, let me see if I can get it. There we go. It's a Halloween plate, all done with a vinyl stencil. So when I did this, I did it one way and then thought about it a long time at night and realized I could make it much easier for you guys. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So we're going to start out with a vinyl stencil. Now, when you get these vinyl stencils, they will look like this. This is what you will actually get. It comes on transfer tape. I've left it on here so far because I want to show you what you need to do. But before we get to that, I decided I just kind of fudged in this background. And I decided it might look a little bit better if we do it a little neater. So I measured it on the other plate, and it's about 1.5 inches from the edge is where the purple is. So I'm gonna divide this plate into 4 and mark it with just a little ruler at 1.5 inches all the way around. It's not gonna be exact, guys, don't worry about that. It'll be okay. So 1.5 inches completely around. So I just made a little mark. Now I'm just going to freehand and connect these dots. Like I said, it's not going to be perfect. I'm going to go probably outside of this, and that's okay. I just want somewhat of a formation in there. So now I'm using Mako's Grapple Stroke and Coats. It is a dark purple, but purples are a really funny color to work with. When you glaze over the top of them, which I did with this plate, they have a tendency to fade out some. And this one did. I mean, this was on pretty heavy, but you see where I have those white spots on there? I'm okay with that. I think it just gives added dimension to it. So I'm going to do, I did this one with a brush. I'm going to do it today with a sponge. So what I'm doing is just taking a regular old synthetic sponge, nothing drastic, dipping it into color, and I'm just going to sponge it around the outer edge of this plate. So I'm sponging it just about up to that line. Last time I put the stencil on first and worked around it. This is going to be much easier. So I'm about that 1.5 inch mark. Like I said, you don't have to be crazed about this. I just want to get that color in there and get it, you know, somewhat in a round circle. So, okay, I sponged it once. I'm actually going to do this 3 times. I'm going to sponge it 3 times. I'm going to let it dry just until that water sheen is off, because otherwise you're going to be just picking color back up. So we're going to let it sit just a minute until it dries some. And then it'll dry fairly quickly. Once it does, we can sponge on a second coat. Okay, that's 2. Let it dry just a little bit more, and then we'll get the 3rd coat on. Then we're going to use Duncan's 504 Neon Orange, I think it's called. And then give it 1 more coat. I'm going to need a little more color here. So 3 coats of the purple, about, I say, like I said, don't make yourself crazy with this, about 1.5 inches off the edge of the plate. Okay, so I'm going to go back around this 1 more time. Okay, so that's 3 coats on that outer edge. All right, so now we're going to I'm going to rinse that sponge out, and on this inner circle, I'm going to do the orange, the 504. And I'm going to take that, I'm going to make a little bit smaller circle in the middle. All right. There's no exact science to this. I'm just kind of freehanding things in there. I mean, if you want, you could measure that out exactly and go ahead and do it. but you'll see once it's all done, it doesn't make that much difference. Okay, so I've got Duncan's Concepts number 504, and we're going to sponge. We're going to start right up against that purple and actually blend it a little bit. So again, I'm picking up color on the synthetic sponge, and I'm pouncing again in a circle. So I want to give this illusion of like sunset or, and I'm not going to take this all the way to the bottom. I'm going to do yellow there. I'm going to take it about 3/4 of the way down the plate. And I'm going to only do this one twice. This is a pretty strong color. It's not like the purple. Purple is not as strong. Okay, so I'm going to, that's once, and I'll go one more time. One more time here. Okay, now I'm going to go yellow. And the yellow is actually like for the inside of the windows. That's what this purpose would serve. And I sponged yellow into the orange on the other plate. Well, I brushed yellow into the orange. I didn't sponge the other one. But I'm sponging this one. Okay, we're going to wring that out and now pick up the yellow. So I'm going to go yellow directly in the center. So hopefully that's where my windows are. And get that pretty yellow. And then I'm going to add yellow to this orange. And the yellow that I'm using is Mako's Stroke and Coat 24. So one coat into the orange and then a couple coats into the center. And I'll take it along this bottom edge where I don't have any color yet. And a couple coats there. Okay. So now we have to let this dry thoroughly. So I'm going to set this on the side and let it dry. And then I'm going to show you how to work with this vinyl. Okay, so I'm going to take a little more orange into this purple up here. Just get a little more on there. Just kind of blend the two colors together. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to let that just dry, and it has got to be thoroughly dry before we proceed. So we're going to let that set, and now when you get the vinyl, it's going to look just like this. And what I want you to do is to cut out the ghost. So we got a little ghost here. And I've got a ghost over here. Yeah, I'm going to cut him out too. So we're going to cut him out. And I've got a ghost right here at the side. They're going to go back in that same place. But I don't want my ghosts black. I want them white. So we'll put all the black in first. Then we'll lay the ghost on and then go back into the white and put the white in. But everything else that you see here on the vinyl, I'll turn around so you can see it. Everything else you see on the vinyl will be black. Now, where it is black here, once we get the vinyl put on, we're going to pull these off, and then yellow, hopefully, will be underneath those spots. Your oranges will be here. Your purples will be around this outer edge. So once you get those cut out, you use a pair of tweezers. It's the easiest thing to use, and they don't have to be good tweezers, any tweezers at all. And you're going to pull an edge there. You see how that pulls up? We are separating the backing from the vinyl. So everything is stuck on to the transfer tape. So that's what's going to happen. I don't really want to pull it right yet because my plate's not dry. I'm going to get that plate dry, and then I'll come back and show you how to do this. Okay, we've got the plate thoroughly dry. It is dry. It's 95 degrees outside. I sat it out on the deck. If you were doing this in the house, I would recommend that you put all your color on and set it on the side until at least 8 hours. I would, even if you did it overnight, you have to make sure that this is dry, 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 or you won't get the vinyl to stick. You can paint it the night before, go back the next day, put your vinyl on, and you will be absolutely fine. But you cannot put it on while it is still damp. And a good rule of thumb is to feel the plate. If it feels at all cold, it's still wet. Even though it may not look wet, just put your hand on it. If it's cold, it's wet. So you want to make sure it's thoroughly dry to get this vinyl to work. Okay, so we've cut the vinyl. We're going to start at the back. And you see how this is white here? That's the backing. This on top is called transfer tape. And what we're doing is we're taking the vinyl and putting it on the transfer tape. So you lift slowly. We got a lot of design in this pattern. So we're going to lift slowly to remove the backing from the vinyl from the backing. And you see how that's coming up? Everything is stuck on the transfer tape, and that's what we want. We want everything to be on the transfer tape. Yep, I missed a little cross down there. And if it doesn't want to come up, rub it with your fingers a little bit, and it'll stick right on there. Okay, so that part of that is done. So now I'm going to take it, and I'm going to kind of center it in this plate. I want these tombstones at the bottom to go towards the bottom of the plate. We're going to press this into place. Okay, so kind of eyeball it before you stick it down, because once you start pushing this, you can't move it. You'll lose the stickiness, you'll get bleed through underneath, so make sure you've got this basically where you want it, and I do. So at this point, now I'm going to rub. I'm going to rub it all the way around, so we get everything to stick down. Okay, so I've got it all rubbed. Now we're going to take the top off away from the vinyl. So just get in a corner, lift, and start lifting the transfer tape and pressing with your fingers as you lift. So we're pressing the vinyl onto the plate, pulling the transfer tape off. Make sure you got all these little pieces. Now, the little pieces, the eyes and mouth in the tree, the little cross that's in this tombstones on the bottom, these little squares here and all the little windows, they all have to come back out. You cannot leave them in there. So a good rule of thumb, especially if you're new at this, take a photo of this before, use your phone, take a picture, so you know where all those little pieces that have to come out are. And this way you won't miss any, because if you miss them, what happens during fire, they burn out. Yeah, they burn out, but they pull color with them. So you end up with these goofy marks on your plate that you really don't want. So make sure you're aware of all these little extras, which are the windows, the tree, these little squares here. Gonna get that to stick. Just rub a little, it'll go right down. But it wouldn't if the plate wasn't dry. If the plate wasn't dry, you'll never get it to stick, no matter what you do to it. So you've got to make sure you're dry, dry, dry. We'll cross down here. And then you'll end up with a mess, because you'll have all kinds of bleed through. So dry, 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 dry is the key words here. Okay, get that part down. Get these little ones up here. And just keep pulling and pressing. And don't try to rip it off in one big piece. It'll come off in one big piece, but you don't want to rip it very quickly, because you want to be able to press it so nothing that isn't supposed to come off comes off. Okay, the witch, we got to rub her a little bit there. sure she's all down. There we go. Got that. Okay. And now we got a little piece of transfer paper just stuck there. So now we're going to go back and we're going to press with our fingers. And make sure that around the design is pressed down firmly. So we don't get any bleed through there. Not worried about this very, very outer edge. Just everything that's around the design needs to be pressed in. Windows need to be pressed down. Those little pieces that I told you need to get out, they need to be pressed in firmly. And then once we get that all pressed in the way it should be, and this looks pretty good, we're gonna take a black stroke and coat. I use Mako's 15. You can use Dunkin's. Dunkin's is just as good. It just depends on what you're used to using. And like I said, I'm going to use the stroke and coat right now. I go between them. So right now I got the stroke and coat black. And I'm going to take a sponge, pick up color, and sponge it in here. And we're going to give this, black is a very, very strong color. So 2 coats of it will be enough. We've got a base coat down already of the yellow and the orange underneath. And now we're going to sponge this black on. I cut this a little bit close to the top, so I may get just a small brush and put this little piece right here in with a brush, just so I don't get the sponge on the background, get the black on the background there. I don't want that. Okay. And then go back and sponge. Get your tombstones down here. Now, when you do this, you let it dry until the water sheen is gone, and then apply your next coat. The vinyl that I told you we have to remove will never dry because that the water just beads up on there. So you just want to make sure that your design area is dry. We don't want it to dry to the point that you no longer see the vinyl underneath, and that'll happen, especially black on black. So drying time, not more than 5 minutes. And then you're going to go back and we're going to pull these windows out. See where we still see that gray? That's where the windows and stuff are. And now here they're more covered, but this will stay wet. And as it dries a little bit more, you'll be able to see them a little easier. But when they get thoroughly dry, you lose that. You lose the vinyl. It's real easy to do. I've had girls do it. They decided to try to do it one week and they're going to pull the vinyl the next week. No, you don't want to do that because you will not see where that vinyl is anymore. Okay, so we've got just about 2 coats on here. We'll go all the way around it. And we probably really could get away with 2, but because we're using 1, but because we're using a sponge, it's just easy to miss pieces. So I'd rather have you give it 2 good coats. Black is strong. The color will cover fine. Okay. So once that gets on, we're going to let it dry just till the water sheen is gone. I think we're good. Just until the water sheen is gone. It won't take very long. And then we're going to go back and we're going to pull up the vinyl. And then once we get the vinyl pulled up, the outer vinyl, then we'll go back and pull out all the little windows and stuff that are stuck in here. So pair of tweezers. Let this set just a second longer. Now I've got some ghosts that I'm adding to this. I didn't add them now because if we did, the under the ghosts will be really black. I want to put them on afterwards and tap in the white. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to add the ghost after we get this off. and you'll see. All right, so I'm gonna start in the corner and I'm gonna lift. And see how we get that nice, crisp cutout. Okay, so that's one piece. And however it comes off, it comes off. I mean, it's not a big deal. Two. I've got this piece in here. And this piece over here. Another one here. Separating the tree from the house. That's what I said. It's a good idea to take some photos. All right, now we got two eyeballs here. The one was pretty easy to see. The another one, not so much. But I kind of know where they are because I've done them a few times. And then here, this needs to come out. So we get 4 windows there. We got these up here. Oh, here's a little piece here that's separating those branches on the tree. So make sure all of that comes out. And if you need to stop the videos while you're doing it to make sure you got everything that I got coming out of here, perfectly fine. Because you really don't want that to set in there. It fires really funky. All right, now we have to let this black dry. I have a little ghost that I'm gonna stick right here, and I don't want to do it when it's wet because then we won't get it to stick. And I just thought that was like a bare spot in the house. You don't have to put the ghost in there. Absolutely fine. But I just thought that that looked kind of bare there. So I thought, I'm going to throw a little ghost in there. So I'll put the other 2 ghosts in that I cut for this. And then when we get those 2 in, you'll see how they're done. So I won't wait for this to dry and then film again. I will do that after I cut off from you guys. But you'll get the idea with the other 2 on how to apply those. Okay. Now, when you're applying this ghost in the middle, give it 3 coats of the white. We're going over black. He's going to look gray when he's done, but that's okay. They're not white anyway, so gray is fine. All right, now all of this got removed. You can see now everything where window should be, it all looks yellow. Like I said, this is a bare spot in there. You had little crosses here, remember? So we got to pull those crosses off. Okay, we got them off. So now what we're going to do, I got a little bit of black on that yellow right there. So I'm going to just use a wet brush and kind of mush that around. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the ghost where I can. So we got 3 different ghosts. This one here with the little swirly tail is the one I use for the center of the house. But like I said, that's got to be dry, so I don't want to do anything with that yet. So now I'm going to push down this, same way we did the rest of the vinyl. Get in a corner, lift it. Okay, see? And then I'm going to add it right here above this little fence at the house. So I'm going to press that down. Now, there's little eyeballs, and they are little, on these ghosts. If you can't get them to stick, you can just go back in there with a little bit of black. It's not a big deal. Okay, so one is going to go there. little eyeballs and a little mouth. That's the one that I'm putting in the house. Okay, and then I got another one that's going to go right here on the side of the house. Okay, got it. So we're gonna put this one right here next to the end of the house, and we're gonna rub it, same thing, and then lift. And rub that eyeball and lift. Okay, so now we're gonna go back with white. Right now I got Dunkin's here in front of me, 244. And I'm probably going to do this with a little stiff bristle brush because it's a small area. It's not like doing the other. So just take some kind of stiff round and get some moisture in it. And then pick up color and pounce it on these ghosts. And we're going to do this in at least 3 coats because I want them pretty white. So we're gonna have to let that dry and then go back over it. But you wanna see them white. So while that is drying, like I said, I'm gonna let that dry. There's a couple things you can do at the end of your plate. You could rim it in black, and I think that's what I'm gonna do with this one. I'm gonna go ahead and rim this in black and then use some white French Dimension. I got it here. So we make sure we shake it down like you shake down an old-time thermometer. Shake it, shake it, shake it. And then pull the lid off and squeeze first. Sometimes it separates enough that you get almost like a little water. We don't want that. Perfect. Squeeze first on a paper plate or whatever to make sure that your consistency is right. And I just did little white dots along the edge. Again, you don't have to do this. I just thought it was a cute little accent. Okay, and then I'm going to take it up this roof line. Oop, and I see a piece of vinyl I missed. And that's how easy it is right there. See it? There we go. Do I have one here? Yep, 2. There were 2 of them I missed. And that's how easy it is to miss those. And once you get used to knowing what to look for, you'll see them. But if you're new at this, you definitely will not. So it's easy to miss them. So when this is done, you're going to apply 2 coats of, I use Pure Brilliance glaze by Dunkin'. You can, whatever glaze you're using, if you're using a Mako product, clear glaze, that's fine. I just use Pure Brilliance. Now, once this comes up, I'm going to have to add another dot there. I'll show you how I rim a plate. We're going to use this black stroking coat that I've been using. And we're going to thin it down just a little tiny bit. Not a lot, just a little. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it. So just a drop or 2 of water. And mix it up. It just helps it flow off the brush a little quicker. Okay. Then I use these little foam sponges. Wet it. Get out the excess moisture, squeeze it out, and load it right to where that, it kind of, it's at a little bit of an angle. So right where that angle is where you want to load the paint to. So load it right there. So I've loaded it with black right to that very tip. Then I hold the plate up and I lay this brush, I hope you can see this, down this way. And I go around the edge of the plate. This really gives you a really nice, clean edge. Now, I'll pick up the other plate, the one I already fired and show it to you. I did a black satin on the background, and oh my God, I love the way that looks. So you see what a nice edge we get with this? I would go around it twice, just to make sure that you've got all of it covered. So you see I'm just spinning it in my hand and laying that brush, that foam sponge on it. You don't have to do this. You could take and use seaweed or synthetic sponge and just do a spongy edge. So if you don't feel comfortable enough doing this, that's another option. You could leave it completely open. You don't have to put an edge on it. I just think it looks really cute with the edge. Okay, so I'm gonna give it one more coat of that white with my smaller brush. Here it is. One more coat of white on my ghost. Okay, we're gonna go back, dab that in, and let that dry just a little bit more. And then what I'll do is I'll take some French Dimension. Once I can get these off, I'll take some French Dimension and I'll dot little white dots along the edge of that black. Again, this is an option. It's not something you want to do. Okay, we're ready to put the little ghost here in the center, remove these ghosts. So let's get this on first. So again, we're just taking the backing off of the vinyl. There we go. We're gonna lift up. Make sure you get his little eyes and his little mouth. And we're gonna put it on right in this dead space that's here. Rub it in. And then pull the transfer tape off of the vinyl. There we go. Make sure you got his eyes on there. The 2 eyes and the mouth is on there. So now we're going to take a little bit of white and we're going to pounce it in that little area. Okay. So we're going to pounce this in. I'll use a little stiff bristle brush. This isn't a very big area. And we're going to pounce that on top. And we're going to do that in 3 coats because I want that pretty white. All right, while that one is drying, I'm going to lift these other 2 right here. And make sure you get the 2 eyes. 1, 2, and the mouth out. Now, if you wanted to, you could go back in here and put black in those areas. And I may just do that. Just drop a little bit of black where the eyes and mouth were, because otherwise they're going to be yellow underneath there. So we'll definitely go back and put those, just a dot of each one in there. But make sure you get that vinyl out of there. All right, while this one is still drying, I'm going to dot I'll do the little black in the other eyes. So let's get a little bit of black here. There we go. Little bit of black, and we're going to stick a little bit of black in those 2 little eyes and the mouth. Okay, so that's in. We're gonna let that white is still taking a little bit of time to dry. So I'm gonna go back with French Dimension and put in French Dimension dots all around the edge of this plate. Once everything is dry, I will put 3 coats of the black matte on the back of the plate because I really like that. I'll do the front of the plate first, and I'll tell you why you do the front of the plate first. If you are glazing this all in one session, you always want to do the area that you have design on, which is the front of the plate, first. And the reason being, if you get the back of that plate full of glaze and it's wet, the wetness soaks into the plate, causing the paint on the front of the plate to be moist again. And when it's moist again, you're going to end up lifting that color when you go to clear glaze it. So by clear glazing it, excuse me, by clear glazing it first, you've got that sealed in. Once that's sealed in and you put the black on the back, then you just let everything dry and you're good to go. But you definitely always, I don't care what pattern you're doing, glaze the area. The only way that you wouldn't do that is, say you put 3 coats of glaze on the back of the plate, you let it, excuse me, let it sit overnight or a couple hours until it's thoroughly dry, then you could go back and do the front of the plate. But if you're going to do it all in one session, like I will, 2 coats on the front, flip it over, do your 3 coats of the black on the back, and then let it dry and you'll be done. So we're going to do little white French dimension dots on the edge of this plate. And we'll let those dry before we try to glaze them. We're not going to glaze them prior to make sure those dots are dry. You could, French Dimension has a gloss to it. There's glaze in there. So, my voice today. So if you wanted to glaze the plate first and then go back and put the French Dimension dots on, you absolutely could. It's just that it's a little harder to see once you got the glaze over top of it. Now you could work on a banding wheel when you're doing this. Put the plate on a wheel and just turn it. I've just got my hand under it. Just makes it a little bit easier for me. And adding my dots. And then this plate, other than getting the glaze on it, is basically done. You just got to pull off that last ghost. But remember to make sure that when you're adding vinyl, like we did the black, and then the black was wet, so I couldn't put the ghost right on top. So you have to let things dry before applying the vinyl. It definitely has to be dry because the vinyl will not stick if it's not. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. There's no sense in you sitting here watching paint dry. You basically knew how I did this. And I'll get a glaze. We'll get a picture of it up and we'll be done. All right. Thank you so much for watching.